This is the chapter number 9 of the Theory of the Transcendent Reality (TTR) regarding the physic of the existence, written by Mauro Bernardini. In this chapter we analyze some mathematical aspects of the TTR theory, and, with this representation we want to highlight the fact that while the point of Aleph follows its path in 11 dimensions, the EPE-Section-Souls that he randomly creates follow the same path, as long as the point remains inside our universe. In particular, we want to remark the existential characteristics of the EPE-Section-Souls, here represented with a little cube. The energy mass of each EPE-Section-Soul acts in our space only through the three forces associated to their components, S, V, and P, and depends only by the mix and the sum of the reduced doses of these DCR, that the point of Aleph casually shares with the three-dimensional space. Even if in reality the three forces Sj, Vj, Pj are always different for direction and intensity on any face of the cube corresponding to the EPE-Section-Soul, anyway, for simplicity of calculation. From now on we assume that these forces act orthogonally to the Cartesian axis of the cube, with the same intensity in each cube face, and through a cube with Planck size. A specific EPE-Section-Soul acts into its variable radius of consciousness, including the EPE-Section-Souls that could potentially come into contact with it, as shown in the picture. The R3 force resulting from the composition between the R1 resulting force of this EPE-Section-Soul, and the R2 force resulting of all the others forces acting internally its radius of consciousness, determines the force tangent to its curve of life. Before analyzing one by one the three forces SVP in order to understand how they manifest themselves and relate with the outside world, we define the tensor of the fourth degree that mathematically will contain all the DCR components, Sj, Vj, Pj, of an EPE-Section-Soul. We will call this tensor existor, and will represent it with this name is because such a tensor may not have the formal characteristics of a real mathematical tensor, and also because it represents and can be used to calculate the behavior of all the DCR components of any existential EPE-Section-Soul. The existor indexes have the following meaning. The N is the index that identifies the EPE-Section-Soul in question. The J equals 1, 2 and 3 identifies the components of the existor that form three sub-existors of order 3, acting on the Cartesian planes of the cubical EPE-Section-Soul. XY equals 1, YZ equals 2, XZ equals 3. The I identifies the type of DCR, I equals 1 for S, I equals 2 for V, I equals 3 for P. The K indicates the planes on which act the forces, K equals 1 for XY, K equals 2 for YZ, K equals 3 for EXZ. The W indicates the components X, Y and Z of the forces in action. W equals 1 for the Cartesian component X, W equals 2 for Y and W equals 3 for Z. Next, we analyze one by one the DCR, and then we see how they are represented with the existor. Later we will see that, through the existor, we can derive the equation that allows us to understand, for example, when a EPE-Section-Soul, and therefore a being of our three-dimensional world, ceases to exist.